What's up, in Soccer We Trusters? How are you doing? How was your weekend? Hit like and subscribe because we have a lot of things to talk about, and we love your support. So let's get after it. Yes! What is up, everybody? And welcome to Dominic Kinnear's favorite podcast in Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Trash Can Conrad, also known as Jim. And I'm here with Charlie Chuckwagon Davies, and Heath Pearce, Mr. Hollywood, is big time in us. Chuck,
absolutely
what's the story?
Big time.
Big time in us.
He just said, you know what? I'm going to be the guy today. I want to show that I'm Mr. Hollywood.
He is him. That is Heath. Heath is him. That's what we're going to go with. And we have a great show for everybody today. We have a weekend recap. Obviously, some big news happening for certain players, most notably Christian Pulisic, who's going to have like his 15th manager since he's been at Chelsea. And obviously, Ricardo Pepi scoring another goal. We got Eric Wynaldum writing his own opinion column for The Guardian that we want to get into, and got some new jerseys to talk about. So very excited to get into this show. But make sure, if you weren't here initially, if you're on the YouTubes, hit like and subscribe because we need your support. Tell a friend about our show. We would love that. If you're following and listening on your podcast platform of choice, make sure you download, follow, leave a 5-star review. We'd love that. And just as a reminder, Chuck, we got to tell them, in Soccer We Trust is a finalist in the soccer category for the Sports Podcast Awards. And we need your help, so please take a minute out of your day to vote. The link is in the description. And also with that little QR code at the top right if you're watching on the YouTubes. All right, I think we have to start here, Chuck. Yes. We have to start with Graham Potter, the manager of Chelsea, getting sacked after 7 months. He won 12 of 31 games. It's like the second worst ever for a Chelsea manager who managed more than 20 games at the club, right next to Glenn Hoddle. And I don't know if he was the right fit. I think we can say that with definite hindsight that he was not the right fit for this club, which was unfortunate. But we have an American owner there, Todd Bowley. So there's an American tie outside of Christian Pulisic. This is a bit of a shit show. I think there's no other way to say it here, Chuck.
Yeah, no, there isn't. Graham Potter, you have to give a ton of respect, put some respect on his name in terms of going to a club with low expectations and maximizing their potential. You can go as far back as Östersund in Sweden, 4th division. He brings them up, gets them to compete in Europa League. They have an attractive style, gets a move to Swansea City, 1 season there, and to Brighton, where he really made a name for himself. He's a charismatic, he's not the most energetic or flamboyant, but he has a clear idea and identity to the club. And that's what Brighton loved about him. It was, I'm going to develop talent. I'm going to get us to compete as well with no egos. And I think when you go to a club like Chelsea, which you can't turn down, I don't blame him at all for leaving Brighton and leaving that environment where he probably could have been manager for the next 10 years. Chelsea is just, we want results now. We got to compete for the Champions League. We got to compete for Premier League. And we're not going to give you a year or 2 years. And you're coming in with the highest of expectations when you sign $500 million worth of players. That's just what comes with the job like that. And for everybody wondering what I was munching on before we started this show, it was a bagel with almond butter and bananas. It was no cream cheese. I leave that for Jimmy. For me, I go with the almond butter, and it's delicious. But back to you. What do you think?
Does your chef pick out the almond butter, or do you pick it out?
No.
All right, so this is going to be Christian Pulisic's, and I'm joking before, but this is going to be his third coach this particular season with Bruno Salter coming in, taking over. He played for Brighton for 7 or 8 years, played the right back position, and came with Graham Potter from Brighton to Chelsea. Now he's going to take over as interim. But there's some rumors floating around that Julian Nagelsmann, who just got fired from Bayern Munich because Thomas Tuchel took over, and Bayern beat Borussia Dortmund 4-2 this weekend. They're 4-0. They're in complete control of that one. He is a name that is being thrown out there. That would be an interesting jump to go from Bayern to Chelsea within a week span. That would be pretty wild. Luis Enrique, who coached Barcelona to great success, and also the Spanish national team, is being thrown into the loop. I'm just trying to decide which coach I think will be the best for Christian Pulisic, who ended up playing the last 10 minutes this past weekend. I think he had some flu-like symptoms, so didn't get the start. And Hollywood Heath Pearce is here joining us.
What kind of podcast am I listening to? Is this European football podcast, mate?
Listen, there's an American owner owning an English club. We're talking about an American player and his future at said club, Heath Pearce.
I'm all for it.
But what manager do you want to see? We're just going to throw you right into the fire right now. If out of the options for Chelsea, if they could pick somebody, they might be doing it soon, given who's available. And there's some pretty big names. I don't know if Pochettino might be thrown in there too. I don't know if they would take him, but what are you thinking for Christian? Because or he might just have to make a move anyway and get a fresh start.
I mean, in all honesty, I think just leaving the club, there's a lot of insecurity there. You saw that actually with Abramovich when they built all that success. It came with a lot of change, right? And they just went for it constantly. And I feel like with a new owner that's ambitious and is experiencing sort of the hardships of you can't just throw money at a club necessarily. You've got to get the pieces right. City has been able to do that. We'll see what their investigation unfolds in terms of money that they've spent maybe outside of the rules. But generally, the game has become much more sophisticated, right? You can't just come in over the top like a PSG in the French league and just dominate. The Premier League is extremely difficult. So for me, and just the insecurities of a coach, the fact that he's been through it all before, I feel like he's proven himself there enough to know that he can do this somewhere else at a better situation. So for me, I would almost hope that it's a coach that comes in right away and goes, "You're not part of my plans." That just goes, been through a lot of change. You've been through multiple coaches. You haven't really lived up to the expectation of what the coaches want with each coach. You've had your hard times. You've had your injuries. I think it's best that you find your next challenge. We're going to come in and bring in maybe another couple of players. So I guess they've spent hundreds of millions already and they've got those players, but that's how I would look at it for Christian Pulisic's future. Maybe not the answer you're looking for, but
no, I think you're right. Chuck, I want to hear from you too on this, and then we'll move on to another Premier League team with some Americans named Leeds that are really struggling. But with regard to Christian,
AKA, by the way, Jimmy, I think what Christian should do is when a new coach comes in, walk straight into his office and go, "I hate you," and then the coach goes, "You're not in my plans."
What's interesting is that if it is Julian Nagelsmann, he'll be familiar with Christian, obviously having that Bundesliga experience. And we thought the same with Thomas Tuchel because they were together at Dortmund at some point. And we thought that was going to hopefully build into something more meaningful for Christian. But it only seems like Frank Lampard was his biggest believer. And since then, it's been a little bit harder for him to get that consistent playing time, though he's been hurt a lot too. So it's
wasn't Lampard not his biggest believer at first either? Like, I don't think Lampard was hot on him till he kind of rounded the corner, or maybe it. Yeah, I think you know what happened early, or it soured early, or what? Something happened that like he proved himself either on the front end or the back end.
I mean, we've been around enough. If somebody starts scoring a couple big goals for you, your mind gets changed pretty quickly on the value of that particular player. But Chuck, your 2 cents on this.
Yeah, I think Chelsea's not afraid of the foreign hire. We've seen it in the past. They're not adamant that the manager has to be English. And then in terms of Christian Pulisic, it's better to go to a club where the manager is picking you. You're being signed by the manager, the sporting director, rather than an interim manager / a new manager comes in and says, "I'm going to make this squad mine. So therefore I'm going to bring in players that I'm familiar with or that I like, that I've managed before." And then they start building the squad that way. Or they prioritize the players who were bought for a lot of money because the owner, Todd Bowley's like, "Make this work. Get Mudryk to play well. Get Enzo Fernandez to be the guy in the midfield." So
make magic.
I think it's what we've been saying this whole time. Christian Pulisic needs a new atmosphere, a new environment, a new club to kind of get him going in the right direction so he can ultimately reach his peak.
I wonder if the Reina parents can call on his behalf to see if they can get him out. I'm just kidding. Was I mixing crossing?
No,
you know what? I'm done.
Christian Pulisic's dad's thrown a few tweets out there in the past. So
okay, everybody's rolling their eyes at me right now. It's fine. All right, let's go to the Leeds game. They lost 4-1 against league-leading Arsenal at the Emirates.
The only time it's okay.
Arsenal,
Charlie, huh? Am I right?
Yeah, 2 goals from Gabriel Jesus, who hadn't scored in many months. So it's good to see him back at it and getting after it. Leeds not looking so great. Wes McKennie did not start this game, came on a little bit later. I guess he was dealing with some flu-like symptoms, and so he didn't make the start, but he did get in. Brendan Aronson did get the start, played 65 minutes, didn't have much of an impact, but I think we could say that about most of the Leeds team. Arsenal, though, different gravy this season. And Heath, I'm going to come to you. I know you're our Arsenal fan. I think, Chuck, you're an Arsenal fan. I'm surrounded by Arsenal fans here, but Leeds, I think, are in trouble because if we look at their fixture list, they got Nottingham Forest, which is a must-win. They're about a point away or 2 points away from each other in the table. That's on Tuesday, so that comes up pretty quick. They got Palace at home as well. Then they got Liverpool at home, Fulham away, Leicester at home, Bournemouth, Man City, Newcastle, West Ham, Tottenham. Those are their last remaining games, and it doesn't look good there at the very end. I could see Leeds going down, as hurtful as that is to say out loud. And Tyler Adams had surgery on his hamstring That's much different than having a hamstring strain. I wouldn't be surprised if he's out for the season. Their manager, Javi Gracia, has mentioned that could be a possibility. And I wonder what that looks like because he's quite the linchpin in the middle of midfield for them. And I don't think they have a like for like. I mean, they have Roca and Weston can kind of share it like our national team. But Heath, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Crystal Palace getting their win over the weekend, I think secured them in a way. And I say that all things considered, that if Leeds win a game, they're right up there next to them. But the upside is that when you look at the bottom of the table for our American boys at Leeds, it's tight. And there's still probably 8 teams that are involved, or maybe say 7 teams involved in that relegation battle, where obviously 3 are going to go down. The downside is that you look at the teams and you go, all these teams seem like they're capable of getting the couple wins they need to secure themselves, right? And again, I'm going on historics, not on form or anything like that. Bournemouth, 2 wins in their last 3. Leicester City on a poor run of form, but you still go, well, it's still Leicester City. Everton, poor run of form, but you're like, well, it's still Everton. Like they could put together 2 results. But obviously they're down at the bottom. Nottingham Forest, since Dane Murphy left, have also been on a reverse trend. And so I think there is hope, but yeah, that strength of schedule is really worrying. But the only upside is that it's not like a 4-horse race or a 5-horse race. There is a number of teams that whoever's going to get 2 in their next 4 or 2 in their next 5 might actually just be enough to be secure.
They should hire Jesse Marsh to help them avoid the drop. That's what I think. Rehire the guy. All right, just to give everybody some context, and then we want to hear from Mr. Chuckwagon. Crystal Palace is in 12th in the Premier League on 30 points. Wolverhampton, 28. West Ham, 27. Nottingham Forest, 27. Bournemouth, 27 points. Leeds, 26. They're in 17th, right outside of the relegation zone. Everton also on 26, but they are in it. Leicester on 25 and Southampton on 23. That is no joke. It's really going to come down to some white knuckling there at the very end for a lot of these clubs as to who's going to avoid the drop. What are we saying, Chuck, about Leeds? How are you feeling about them?
It's going to be tight. I wouldn't say they're guaranteed to get relegated, but I think they're going to be very close if they do survive. I think their
schedule is tough.
Yeah,
West Ham and Bournemouth were in the relegation zone in the weekend, right? And they've jumped, and so it messes with your head when you see like the sliding table, the moving table, because again, Leeds were up towards 13th, 14th before the weekend. 2 teams win, and you just see this like crazy slide, which is scary.
I honestly, the next 2 matches, I think that's going to determine. I know you're still going to have about 8 matches to go, but Nottingham Forest at home, it's a must win. If you beat them, I think that really bodes well for the survival of this season. And then away or home to Crystal Palace, 2 home games in a row. If you can get 6 points out of that, I think really that will be the defining 2 matches of the season.
38 points, Jimmy, is what it took for them to secure themselves at the end of last season. 38 points to be safe.
26. So
what's that?
They're on 26.
Yeah, so 38 points had them finish 17th, just above the drop. Was actually 3 points clear of the drop. At 35 points went down last year. So you can see there's a lot of teams looking at their world right now going, oh, man.
We need 10 to 12 points.
In terms of winnable games, I mean, it's only Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, and Bournemouth, unless you sneak a Leicester City. So you win those 4 games.
They have to beat Nottingham Forest at home on Tuesday. They have to.
I mean, Leicester in horrible form also. I mean, that's one where they've got to look at and go, that's a 6-point swing. We need that, right?
Right.
You can't go for a point there.
Or maybe we got Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace.
What do I know, guys? I relegated the only time I had the chance to stay up.
That's
so,
true. That's true.
I can't give you any advice on how to do it.
All right.
How not to do it.
Well, let's flip to the positive side. No, actually, we got to stay in the Premier League. Let's go to Fulham. They lost to Bournemouth 2-1. Jedi and Tim Ream maybe could have done a little bit better on the game-winning goal by Dominic Solanke. But overall, I think Fulham is still in a pretty good position. They're looking pretty comfortable. They scored a very good goal in this particular game. Anthony Robinson had a great opportunity, hit it off the crossbar. So I thought the second half, Bournemouth really kind of found a different gear, and Fulham couldn't keep pace. It didn't create as much. But in the first half, it looked pretty even. I actually liked how Fulham played. But, I don't really have much to say. Kind of just letting everybody know on this one. So let's go to the positive stuff. Ricardo Pepi scored again for a really bad team in Holland. They're in the relegation zone. It doesn't look good for Groningen, but he still finds a way to have success. Now, I will say, having watched a good portion of this game against Fortuna Sittard, probably not saying it right, but that's my version of it. They had a ton of opportunities, and I don't know how they only scored one, but Ricardo Pepi got on the end of it. He now has 10 goals and 3 assists. So I guess the big question is, and if for everybody listening, hit us up on Twitter, ISWT Pod, or hit us up here in the comments on YouTube. Where does this guy go next season? Chuck, I'm coming to you on this as a resident striker. Where does Ricardo Pepi need to go?
It would be nice if he could go to PSV, and especially if PSV.
So stay in Holland, but just go to one of the better clubs.
Yeah. I mean, they have Luke de Jong, who's aging, and if you want to go to a place where you're probably going to get some opportunities and a team that's going to be competing in Europe, I mean, Luke de Jong's 32. I would like that move from him.
You think
going back to Bundesliga doesn't really make sense to me.
Wait 1 sec. Before you leave PSV, with Ernie Stewart going there, right? They now have that American connection in the front office where it could. No, what are you saying,
Love
Chuck?
that.
Yeah,
I mean, even though he didn't get picked to go to the World Cup, it could be a reason he could have a little bit of a safety net knowing he's got somebody in his corner high up. That's all I'm saying.
No, you're right. I mean, you just want him to go to a place where he's going to play, right? Groningen, not the best of clubs, but he learned a lot from this season because he played every match. They relied on him to score goals. He did that. Ultimately, his team wasn't good enough, but he's gaining that valuable experience that's only going to propel him to play at the next level and to get minutes at the next level. So you just want to see him continue to take those steady steps forward and not make that crazy jump. Augsburg obviously wasn't a good fit. They didn't play a certain style. They didn't play to him or for him. So I don't see him going to another Bundesliga club if it didn't work well at Augsburg. So you're looking at a top team that's competing in Champions League, maybe in Belgium. PSV is on the verge, depending if they can get past Ajax, but they'll be playing in Europe either way. Man, I think PSV would be the best place, just knowing that Ernie Stewart's there.
And he's 20, right? Yeah. Like we need, why would we send a 19-year-old or 18-year-old to Augsburg in the Bundesliga? I mean, we didn't send him, but like, obviously that was one of the teams that could spend enough to get him. Why would that ever have been, Charlie? I mean, you've been in that situation. I mean, it's a big leap, but it's also into a club that you don't know what you're going to get, right? And even going to the Bundesliga in general at that age as a striker can be tough. We should keep him in the Dutch league where they are going to create chances. He's going to be if he goes to a PSV or an Ajax or whoever like that, you end up in a highly intense, highly competitive environment where there's 3 Ricardo Pepis, but at least your chances to score are going to be there. You're going to get your chances on the field, and it's not going to be a PSV defaulting to the 30 and over players to compete, right? There's always that development aspect within their walls that's different than a Augsburg that's going to be like, well, we just want to survive. And then part 2, can we get a few wins to finish mid-table?
Yeah, well, if you're the sporting director, I know you're selling just because you're greedy and you're going to make that money. So that's why he ended up at Augsburg. Money. You said, give me that 20 million. Okay, yeah fine. Good luck, Pepi.
That's an American-owned club. That club is an American-owned club, so there may have been some sort of emphasis there that obviously they realized, oh yeah, I don't have control of what the coach does.
But for all of us, let's be realistic, right? Because if we were able to put ourselves in his shoes, you're desperate to get out of MLS because you feel that you need to be in Europe to be in the World Cup, to be starting in the World Cup, and to have some success in the World Cup. You need to go, and your club is saying we are only letting you leave for a certain number. All these clubs come in, clubs that you think you'd really benefit to be at, and you'd probably get an opportunity and things would go well. None of them willing to pay the 20 million or however much, whatever the final number was. But Augsburg does. You're going to take it. You're going to take it. You're not going to stay with your club. We all would be in the same situation. You're going to be heavily paid. So you're thinking, all right, time to start stacking my bag. And at the same time, you're going to be in Europe and you say, I believe in myself. I'm going to make it work. I don't fault him for that. I fault maybe the people around him who are telling him to go. At the same time, you believe in his talent. You see like he's on this rocket ship. So you think, hey, wherever he's going to make it work. It's not like he's going to Chelsea or Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid or, a big time club that Augsburg. Yeah, he'll make it work. They're going to have to pay
Jimmy's Atletico Madrid, a big club.
I'll take it. I was excited. That was the second club coming out of his mouth. To be honest. Hey, to your guys' point, I do think that some players just aren't allowed to skip steps. And I think Ricardo Pepi might be going through that. And now he goes to Groningen. They've scored 26 goals in the Eredivisie this season, and he has half of them, or he's helped contribute in half of them, 10 goals and 3 assists, which really speaks to his value. And he didn't even start when he first got there, right? He had to kind of ease into that and earn that starting spot, which he's done. So I like that step that you're suggesting, and I think Fabrizio Romano is also reporting that going to PSV. So now he's proven himself in this league with limited opportunities to score goals, playing with a team that's really struggling. Let's put him on one of the better teams there. And then if he proves himself at that point and he's playing in European competition and so on and so forth, then he can make a jump and take that next step to what it might be the Bundesliga, it might be somewhere else. And then he can keep taking those steps. And I like that that's happening. Sometimes it's just how it's going to have to work out for him. But the guy's on fire. Scored again. Obviously had 3 goals over the 2 games in the break for the Nations League. So excited to see what his future looks like, of course. All right, we're going to take our first break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we got to talk about Tillman. We got to talk about Paredes. We got to talk about a whole bunch of guys. Then we got to talk about Eric Wynaldum, a column that he wrote for The Guardian, and then these new jerseys that dropped for the U.S. women and men's national team. So don't go anywhere.
Absolutely magisterial here.
Okay, everybody, just so you know, In Soccer We Trust is more than a YouTube-first podcast, all right? It's a community, and we love our community, and now you can rep us. I've got the sweater on right now. It's official. We have, at the Paramount shop, T-shirts, mugs, sweatpants, hoodies, laser engraved pint glasses. We have mahogany wood paneled stuff.
Right,
It's signed for you guys, hats, water bottles, and more, to show your friends and family that you know what's up. So right now, In Soccer We Trust listeners, you'll get 20% off your order when you use the podcast exclusive code SOCCER20 during checkout. That's SOCCER20. It's only available for our listeners. So head over to paramountshop.com/collection/in-soccer-we-trust. And if you remember that, you get a free extra 20%. And make sure you shop now. All right, everybody. We got some more recapping to do. And I do want to dive into this Eric Wynaldum piece because he says some interesting stuff, as Eric does on the regular. But Fuller and Balogun for Reims got an assist. He hit the crossbar twice in this one, and they are on fire. They beat Nantes 3-0, so we can talk about him. Malik Tillman scored his 11th and 12th goals of the season for Rangers. I definitely want to talk about what his situation is. Kevin Paredes came on as a super sub and had a game-tying assist to make it 2-2 for Wolfsburg. We got Timo Weah play right back again for Lille in their 3-1 win. We have Joe Scally obviously playing for and starting for Borussia Mönchengladbach. Coming out of the break, Jalen Neal scored in MLS. Scored his first ever MLS goal for the Galaxy, even though the Galaxy can't score goals. Otherwise, St. Louis lost their first game of the season to Minnesota United. But actually, let's go back to Tillman. So Tillman, from what I understand, the Rangers have a $5 million option to buy him. But in that contract...
The Rangers, what is this, hockey?
Yeah, the New York Rangers.
The Rangers. The
yeah,
MLS?
so what? The MLS. Get over it, Heath. I'm American. I can add thes wherever I want.
I thought this was a football podcast.
Oh, the football podcast, mate. It's just a bit to banter, mate. So Tillman playing for Rangers. I'll correct myself. 11th and 12th goals of the season. Bayern Munich have a chance to buy him back. So even if Rangers pay $5 million for him, they can go. Bayern can come back over the top and pay 10 or something. I don't know what that number is, but they can buy him back. Is he good enough to go back to Bayern? I mean, they're so stacked, and he's been playing really well, but I don't know. So Heath, I'm going to come to you first on your thoughts on Malik Tillman.
Yeah, I Bayern's a tough. He's not an Alphonso Davies, right? Alphonso Davies, I think, is undeniable in terms of his upside and where he was going to go and his trajectory. I don't think he's that. I think he is a very good player. I think breaking double digits is a sign of the quality of a player. But I don't
look at the people he has to compete with: Kingsley Coman and Leroy Sané. Like, is he playing over Sadio Mane? You know,
Gnabry. Yeah, like
yeah, that's hard.
It's more of like, even if they did recall that, or even if they go, hey, we play 75 matches a year, we need a player like this. If you're him, do you go, yeah, it's kind of the Zach Steffen where I was like, I don't have any plans to go back to this club, because I just don't see a world in which, unless you have, obviously they have a new manager that's come in and they go like, I see this guy as part of my plans, not just depth, because that could be an easy solve for them, which is like, oh, bring him back. And now we've got more depth in our squad. But if you're him, you're finding your form, you're finding your rhythm, but you're still a bit unproven. Big gap between the SPL and the Bundesliga in terms of, what that's like, getting your chances, and then also Champions League.
It's interesting. It's one of those, Chuck, I know that if Rangers end up electing to purchase him for 5, and it looks like they probably will, given how well he's been performing, it would be nice if you could just go back to preseason with Bayern under Tuchel over the summer, have a month with the guys and really just kind of show where he is and how much growth he's made in Scotland before they made that type of decision. So Bayern could really decide, but it looks like it's out of their hands, at least for the moment, unless they want to buy him back.
Well, it's ultimately up to Tillman. He can say, I don't want to, I don't want to come back. So you might put in your $5 million and say, we want you. And he might say, I need more. This was a great year for me to get playing time and also really develop physically. How do I play every match in a league that's super physically demanding? Maybe not the best technically or tactically, but he's proven himself. So I would like to see him take another step, not to Bayern Munich because he's not going to play, but maybe it is a loan to a team in the Bundesliga from Bayern Munich, a team where he'll get a lot of playing time and a good opportunity. So I could see him getting a new loan to another club in a little bit more of a competitive situation across, because you got Rangers and Celtic. Everything else is wish-wash.
Right. Got the Old Firm coming up on April 8th. Very curious to see how he performs in those games. I think there was, and this was
that league is wrapped
as well.
That league is
it's wrapped. Yeah, Celtic's going to have it, but still a big game, right? That feels bigger than most of the games they play all season. So maybe that was what hurt them a little bit. Tillman and Sands, I'm thinking about earlier in the season when they got to play in European competition and Rangers got rocked a little bit. And so you want to see him step up in big moments. If Bayern are going to really buy him back and really seriously consider him, he's got to have a serious impact and influence on the team in the biggest moments. All right, let's talk about Kevin Paredes. He's only got 1 league start for Wolfsburg, the 19-year-olds, but it's his talk about impact and influence. He's doing very well with the minutes that he's getting. So in less than 400 Bundesliga minutes this season, he's got 1 goal and 3 assists. And if you extrapolate that out over 90 minutes, that would be good for 5th in the Bundesliga if he had enough minutes to qualify, that the 0.92 goals plus assists per 90 minutes, which is pretty remarkable. But he's only got 1 start. I guess the question here is, his future looks undeniable. We said that about Alphonso Davies. It's clear that he's continuing to settle in and make a difference. And Chuck, I'm going to throw this back to you. There's a tweet here from Chuck Me 92 Soccer, who said a complete list of U20 eligibles in the Bundesliga with more goal contributions than Kevin Paredes: Bellingham, Mukoko, Musiala. That's it. And those are 3 of the biggest young players in the Bundesliga. What happens if Paredes starts to lose his mind and blow up? You got to play him for the national team, right? You got to give him a shot and give him a nice long look, right? But
you want to give everybody a shot. I get that.
Jimmy, remember Jimmy put 13 people on the field before? He had 13 guys in his lineup. You know what I mean?
He's got to start.
My kind of coach.
Win games with as many people as I possibly can. I was doing the 5-4-4. Okay, everybody deal with it.
Where were you during my career as a manager?
Jimmy's favorite magazine is the 544 magazine. You know
it's
what I mean?
544.
The future of modern football.
I've got it all figured out over here. Hey. I'm gonna win all types of leagues and trophies all over the place in the 544. But Kevin Paredes, we can use. I know I'm using him as an example because as he's starting to compile these numbers that okay, once he starts to play regularly, we'll see if that continues, which is something different, right? He's only got 1 league start, as I mentioned, but he's making the most of his minutes. And if he becomes undeniable, we need to play him, and he deserves that chance. I'm just thinking we're stacked in the winger position. So who makes way for Kevin Paredes, assuming he continues to get on this upward trajectory?
Well, it comes back to you're only playing for the national team if you're playing for your club, if you're in form. If you're playing for your club, and then if you're in form, right? Those are the 2 difference makers in terms of, are you going to get a call up to this camp when you're loaded? I mean, during our years, central midfield was pretty heavily stacked.
Right.
I mean, it was very difficult to get a call up because, I just remember Mo, Sasha Kleshin, Benny Philhaber, on top of Michael Bradley and Rico Clark, and Stu Holden ultimately came in. So then you're looking at just an absolutely loaded central midfield, And it's very difficult to get a call up because you can only call up a certain amount of players. I think for Kevin Paredes, he's going to be a next season type of player. I think the 2023-2024 season is his at his club. I think this was, for the past 2 years, let's get used to the training. Let's get used to the team, the style, the language. But my man from DC United, come on. He's going to shine. He's ready. Next year, though. It's not this year.
Yeah.
But he's also one of those.
He's only 19. He's only 19.
He also can play a lot of different positions. He can play winger. He can play outside back. He's
I'm
more
glad you brought up.
age.
We have a winger that can play outside back because Timo Weah did it once again this weekend for Lille.
So did I. I did that for decades, guys.
You did that. He actually pushed up a little
Not
bit
professionally.
in the 70th minute. But we might be having an issue here at the right back position because Timo Weah, if he could be an option, could make room for somebody else. He likes to get forward. Really just depends on who we're playing against, but that can put some pressure on our resident right backs right now. Is Serginho Dest, who wasn't in the 18 for Milan's 4-0 win over Napoli. Joe Scally, Brian Reynolds, obviously starting to emerge and getting more meaningful time for his club in Belgium. As our resident outside back, Heath, any thoughts on Timo Weah as a legitimate contender for that right back position?
I think it should be, right? I think we're getting to a point where it's again, the pool of the players that we have, we're getting to a point where like being young and full of potential is not going to cut it in a year from now. We've got a pool of 7 fullbacks that are all 25 or younger. We're now going to need to see who is going to actually be the best one. I don't want us to have a bland pool of players where it's like, well, we could go with one or we could go with the other. I want to see somebody emerge. Obviously, we know Serginho Dest's capabilities and potential, but he's got a lot to do at the club level, and I think that should be part of the discussion. But for Timo Weah, absolutely. If he shows that willingness, I look at Kevin Paredes too. Kevin Paredes is traditionally a winger, but the question has always been, and again, in my conversations with Tony Lepore from US Soccer, was around.
Was that over coffee, or when did you guys
shout out Charlie Davies and the New England area of the country? Is it we're talking Delaware? Is that what we're saying, Charlie? Tony Lepore?
What?
Where's
New
he from?
Hampshire.
New Hampshire, that's what it is. My alma mater, Southern New Hampshire University.
Delaware.
Go whatever the mascot is. But sorry, that was Joe Biden. Anyways, the
I digress.
I digress. The point I was trying to make is the same with him. The question around his game for Paredes is, does he have the final product, right? Gets into good spots, can get down, beat you 1v1. Will he have the final product to score and set up assists? We're seeing that development now that can make the argument, yeah, I could take a spot in the midfield as a winger, but as a fullback, you've got to be willing to do that other side of the game. So for Weah, who we know fancies himself an attacker that we like and has been great for the national team, and Paredes, it's, are you willing to accept that for your next level, whether it's at the club or at the national team? That could be where you establish yourself. That could be where you have both sides of the game. It's we just talked about him. Alphonso Davies wasn't a fullback, right? And then you go, okay, but you know what he could be? He could be a fullback for a Champions League winning side or a team that dominates, and he could do both sides of the game. And he just immediately bought into that, right? He's a very difficult player to play against when he's defending. But he also can kill you going forward. And that's what I'd like to see from one of them, accepting that.
Okay.
Not just like
that.
Being a temporary or a part-time fill-in where you go, oh yeah, but he can go forward,
So I want to go back here. I'm going to leave the outside back position. I think Heath covered that. Let's go back to striker because I want your thoughts on the future of Jordan Morris. Dude's got 8 goals in 6 games, scored again this weekend. Resident number 9 for our podcast, Chuck Wagon. What do you do with someone who's now playing, doing well, scoring a bunch of goals, and do you think he's just done with the national team, or
you go ahead, Charlie?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about Jordan Morris. I
So
love what
only 28. Only 28.
Yeah, only 28.
Just remember this is going on Twitter. Later, just so you know.
Hey,
but if club form, if club form, I'm just throwing this in because if club form is what we're judging players on, and you can only play in the league that's in front of you, right? Malik Tillman's another option. He can only play against Scottish opponents because that's the league he plays in. Jordan Morris obviously cruising right now and crushing everybody in MLS. He's the Golden Boot winner by 3 goals over the Kloss dude.
He's definitely beasting it.
He's beasting it. So okay, we got plenty of time till the summer. I mean, we have obviously plenty of games over the summer as well. What do you do with this? Given if club form is what we're judging everybody on, his is undeniable at the moment.
Yeah, I would say he's obviously in the form of his career as a striker, and Rui Diaz is obviously not playing, which makes him that much more deadly, right? He has the pace. He's always at a pace. He looks fit. He's hungry. But in terms of being a striker at the international stage, unless he scores 35 goals this year in MLS, and he's the Golden Boot winner, and you have to. He
like
has
the
to be
Erling Haaland of MLS.
Yeah, he has to be in the squad just because
God,
the statistics are just mind blowing. He's just not above the other players in front of him on the depth chart.
But this would be rating him as a number 9, right? We're not. It's like we're seeing JMO as a number 9, not as a winger here.
For sure, not a winger. For sure, not a winger. But in terms of, I think the finished product being dangerous, scoring goals, he hasn't always been the best at the finish, right? He'll get a lot of chances because he's busy, but in terms of actually scoring, the game changes internationally. That your influence, the way you play, you can't be one dimensional, and I think that's what hurts Jordan Morris at the international stage.
He did score against El Salvador in El Salvador to salvage that 1-1 draw with the Nations League. I'm just saying, when he gets his opportunity.
I can't.
He doesn't want to comment on it at all. Listen. If I'm speaking for everybody listening or watching, if we're judging players on league form, and if they're playing in Scotland or Belgium or not a top 5 European league, and you're like, let's bring that guy in because he's hot, the MLS should be in that conversation. That's all I'm saying.
All right,
okay?
but where would you value it?
I'd value him as the number 9. Like, if we're going to see him at this point, I don't think he's got any room as a winger. Right. I think that the guy's a tank. If you've ever seen Jordan Morris up close, the guy's a tank. So
and he's an awesome person.
That too. But leaving that aside, we're only judging him on playing ability. Does he help the team in that spot? We're a little thin in that spot. Is Balogun coming? Is he not? We don't know. And Ricardo Pepi's doing fine. I think that if you wanted to create some value around JMO, it would be in the number 9 spot moving forward, because we have way too many wingers, and I think we have clearly better options there. That's all I would say with that. But I just want to make sure that we're just throwing, like, if you're anti-MLS, then you're going to be anti-MLS. It doesn't matter. Like, we're not here to convince you on any of that. But if you are of the mindset that, hey, if guys are playing well for the club, they deserve a look, then you have to consider MLS. You can't just say all the other leagues are cool, but this one isn't. Like, that's kind of bullshit in my opinion.
Spicy Pineapple Charlie said he has a great personality.
So
anyway,
I
just wanted to throw that out there. Let's go to this.
Wait. Sanchez. I just want to hear.
You want to go
before?
Okay, go ahead.
Just in terms of depth at depth chart as a number 9, where's Ricardo Pepi? I mean, sorry, Jordan Morris, because he's not ahead of Ricardo Pepi. That's
he's ahead of Ferreira.
Clear. He's ahead of Jesus Ferreira because Jesus Ferreira is not a real 9. I think we all know that. But is he ahead of? Would you rather play him over Josh Sargent?
I would give him a look. I would give him a look there. The thing about Jordan Morris is that I think that we've seen the same. I think we've seen him as a winger, the ceiling, right? He's never shown that he doesn't have the ability to play on the national team or be impactful. I think we see the ceiling of that versus other players that have a higher ceiling for the future. And that's a different conversation as what do you go with? But as the 9, I would give him a run at that, but it's all opponent based, man. And the way that we play, like, I still think that the only thing I care about is who's my number 1 on the depth chart of the national team as a striker, because the rest of them don't really matter with how we play and the style that we play right now.
Mm-hmm. Although if you're in a World Cup, you need a number 2 or number 3 to come in to change the game, and we didn't have that.
Sure. And he was one of those options that came off the bench, but as a winger, I don't know. I'm just these are facts. Yeah. Now let's talk quickly about Ilie Sanchez, who I love as a player. Played in Kansas City for a long time, grew up in the Barcelona Academy, 32 years old. Mm-hmm. And I talked to Steve Cherundolo, coach of LAFC, that was his best move of last season, him and Thornton, getting Ilie Sanchez into the team, because he just settled everything down. He's such a great piece of connective tissue, as Heath likes to say, to transitioning the team from defense to attack. And he's super smart. He just got his citizenship, so now he's eligible to play for the U.S. 32, we're a little thin in that area, even though Aiden Morris has scored 2 goals. He's favorite player for the crew this past weekend.
Charlie just left. Charlie literally just left.
I'm just saying,
Are we really bringing this up?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just
Ilie
saying,
Sanchez at 32.
no, of
talking
course,
about
I don't wanna bring him
national
in.
team.
I don't want to bring him in.
Let's be real.
Listen,
That's not even
I
a
saw it.
topic.
I saw it floating around the social medias, and I thought I want to hear Charlie get all frustrated. So this is why I'm bringing it up.
I'm here for it. I'm here for
All
it.
right, Charlie,
I
you know
like
what?
it. I like
Charlie
it,
says
Jimmy.
no. Charlie says no.
Hey, Jimmy,
Charlie
we've
says no.
always had. You know what the problem is we've always had a 6, and we've always had a backup number 6 that was less than an ideal option, right? Nobody was competing for that spot.
Wouldn't he
we
be
always
the
had
Tim
Kyle
Ream,
Beckerman
though, of the group? He'd be the Tim
No.
Ream of the midfielders.
We always had Kyle
older and
Beckerman.
experienced.
We had Dax
Charlie doesn't
McCarty
wanna see that.
playing that role. And then we had Kellen Acosta become that kind of step-in role for a backup 6 to close out games when he was younger. I don't know why we can't.
He's trying to light me up. I am like burning inside as he's naming these people. I absolutely want to
He's
just
triggering.
pull my head off.
Charlie's triggered right now.
Oh my
Why can't we have?
You're
why
really
can't we
going to
have
bring up Dax McCarty and Kyle Beckerman with a 32-year-old?
Wait,
By the time
but
the World Cup
but
comes around,
that's-
he's 36. Come on, man.
Charlie,
Come
the
on.
World Cup's not in 7 years from now. Like
Oh
we're talking
my
about a couple,
gosh.
and we're not
All right,
talking about the
35.
World Cup.
He's
We're not
35.
talking about the World Cup. I'm talking about now. Why can't he, like Kyle Beckerman was another player that when you came to 20,
So you'd play him over
14.
Luca Della Torre, because that's
As-
basically
as-
what you're getting.
as-
Luca Della Torre and
No,
Luka
Ilie
De La Torre's not a
plays the
6.
dude.
yeah, Luca De La Torre is a possession-based
Listen,
player
I
like
just-
Ilya
I
Sanchez.
actually-
So
but
you're going to
I-
say Ilya
Can we-
Sanchez is
I
going to
want
be
to
a
add
low
this as a
6.
segment to the show that we can trigger Charlie. That's a new segment. We just triggered Charlie today.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody. We're going to take our second and last break of In Soccer We Trust. We're going to come back because we think that we're going to wait and see if Charlie's head's going to explode. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the UEFA Europa League on Paramount Plus.
What a night!
Your home for more ultra-competitive, world-class soccer. Where Europe's elite and soccer's Cinderellas pump out that one-of-a-kind white-knuckle excitement that grows with every cut, every cross, and each and every... The UEFA Europa League. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Well, while Charlie's blood is still boiling, we want to remind everybody to not miss a second of action from the greatest club competition on earth. Well, there's 2 of them, the Champions League and the Europa League. Follow the biggest stars from the world of soccer, not named Charlie Davies, like Vinicius Jr., Victor Osimhen, Erling Haaland, Marcus Rashford, and Angel Di Maria as they try to clinch continental glory. Stream every match from the Champions League and the Europa League, and if you're lucky, the Europa Conference League live only on Paramount Plus. And you can try 1 month free with the promo code ADVANCE. All right, everybody, welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy with Chuck and Harry, and we are getting after it today in the weekend recap. Not only is Chuck triggered, but so is everybody in the chat. And that's just the way we like it. It's a real spicy comment section today on the YouTubes.
Oh,
if you're listening
gosh.
to us, you're probably triggered as well. Let us know how triggered you are from 1 to 10 on Twitter at ISWT Pod. We'd like that a lot. So speaking of triggered, Eric Wynaldum's always triggered, okay? And he wrote an article for The Guardian. And one of his main takeaways, boys, is it's probably the end, or this might be his thesis if I'm looking at it in an essay form. He said there are too many kids playing soccer. Then he added, let me rephrase that. It's wonderful that kids are playing the beautiful game, no doubt, but there are too many parents paying thousands of dollars for their kids to play alongside truly great players. That's not helping our best ones, and it doesn't help the average ones who are outclassed in every game they play. Our best players need to be playing with and against each other, not alongside a bunch of kids who effectively act as training cones. Oh, Eric Wynaldum coming in hot. Heath Pearce, what do you got?
I mean, there is some truth to the fact that I don't think there's enough programming that exists, right? So, like, if a kid doesn't do that, the alternative is recreational soccer. And that is a programming issue, which means that you have elite, and so you pay to be in the elite, and then you have recreational soccer. And there's not 20 tiers of soccer that you can go to if you're not in the A team, that you have a B league or a C league that's still competitive and pushing you to be the best player that you can be. I agree that there is a gap that exists of programming in the US. But it's not that simple to just say like all those kids should quit, because then you end up with what we all see, which is all these kids in the one area becoming part of one group of players identified at the age of 12, and they become the MLS Academy. And the MLS Academy keeps those kids all the way through. And then you've lost all the other kids that would have been a Jimmy Conrad, or perhaps didn't have the right environment, or came later, and all these types of things. So I think it's a little bit of a, again, I haven't read the whole article, but based on on those comments. Not as easy of a solve to just say there's too many kids playing and it's ruining development. Because
okay, no, I get you. So Charlie, I'm gonna, in some ways, I think Eric contradicts himself here, and I like the article. I think it's definitely food for thought and definitely worth diving into. But he then goes on to say, this is the next paragraph after acting as training cones. The boutique club programs these kids are meant to play in aren't helping either. A while back, the U.S. Soccer Federation de-emphasized high school soccer in order to prioritize club soccer. That was a mistake. Our best young players now have no idea what pressure is. They play their biggest games in front of a few parents and lawn chairs rather than a buzzing high school stadium where pride and a sense of occasion are on the line, as are your opponent's fans who are yelling at you for 90 minutes. But we could argue that when you play in high school, you're playing with half the team that are effectively known as traffic cones.
My experience was real. Those are real traffic cones that were just like, were there to cut my ankles up every time I got the ball.
I loved my high school experience, and I'm with him on this. I think that kids not only have to deal with the pressure, but I also think there's so much value in learning how to become a leader when you're playing with somebody who isn't as good as you, and you have to get them to raise their game to your level, or you got to meet them somewhere, and you can't belittle those players. You have to figure out a way to raise them up. And how do you do that? I don't think you get that at that, the MLS Academy where everybody's pretty good and it's more the coach kind of dictating what the asks are. But in this moment, you have to figure out ways to get more out of these kids that can't do what they can do. And I find that to be very important in terms of the development of the intangibles of leadership and communication and all that other good stuff. But that kind of contradicts what he said before, because there are a lot of kids that aren't good enough in high school.
Well, all I can say is from my personal experience, high school was incredible for me because I went to a boarding school. So shout out to Independent School League
of course you did.
in New England and to
mahogany walls his whole life.
Charlie's about to get his kid scholarships if he finishes this talk.
Shout out to his tennis coach.
Hey, Brook School was where it all happened for me because I really matured living at school and I was in a perfect environment. I was being pushed by teachers, classmates, and my advisor. So I think from my perspective, it comes down to the coaches. It comes down to
high school though, Charlie. That's not high school.
No,
your experience is not high school.
It's not a traditional high school. No, absolutely not. And I know that, but what I'm saying is you can still go to high school and make it as a professional and still just as much as you would have had you not done the high school route and just played, because we all know what burnout is. We all know about education too, because you don't want to get to your first contract and you don't know how to add, right? So I think for me, it's case by case basis, but ultimately the best coaching gets the kids to a place where they can, feel whether they're ready for professional soccer or if they're ready to kind of go in a different direction. So I think what it comes down to is setting up your players to succeed. So the most super talented ones, pushing them in the right way, and the ones who need to catch up, giving them the right instructions so that they feel comfortable and they know what they're doing on the pitch. So they aren't traffic cones, because we all know in Europe, they don't have the athleticism that all most Americans have. But what they do have is an understanding of the game and tactic, technique. If I can't outmuscle somebody or run by someone, but my first touch is on point, guess what? That I nullify your speed just by that. I'm in the right position. I think when you have people who are just looking for hot takes and writing crazy articles and doing all this, they don't give you that. And it's hard to understand that. Well, maybe,
but he does bring up the coaching stuff, and that's the kind of the back end of it that we need some coaches as well. In fairness to him, but I would say to your point, Charlie, there's not as much nuance. You almost wanted to continue to give you more context and more understanding of where he's coming from.
But one of the things that I wanted to say about it is the thing that I was excited about. I only played 1 year of high school soccer, but what I learned from playing high school soccer, and then exactly. And then I went to IMG, right? The flip side was I was playing high school soccer in Modesto, California. And what I learned about that more than the game days itself, which was there was pressure, is that I was playing every day with 17 and 18-year-olds as a 14-year-old kid. And the pressure that came from just the hierarchical nature of a high school, right, of playing with older kids on a varsity team and me being the young one, is that there was more pressure on me to not make mistakes, to play to their level. They were athletically more gifted. They were physically more developed. There were all these things that I remember and experienced versus the club environment, which the next year I went to residency. And I was in an incredible environment every single day, intense, whether it was school, on the field, off the field, intense environment, but we never played games. You never played any games of meaning and impact, which I thought was the downside to that program, right? Which is like, we got all of the training in the world, all the intense training in the world once, twice a day, but you never got to actually have the pressure of what that meant to play in games. Because you played a local club team, you played the U18s, you'd play a youth national team game, you'd go to a tournament, but you didn't have a consistent world where you were being put to test in pressured environments. You were just training in pressured environments. And I think there's a big gap there as well that from my experience that I really liked in high school, because it was pressure. I had some 18-year-old kid yelling at me that was, in my eyes, better than me, right? And again, maybe it was the area that I was in or the league that I played in was competitive and things like that. But there were some benefits to me that were different than a completely different environment that I was in.
What do you know about pressure?
Shout out to Ace Ventura and all Ace Ventura fans out there.
This is a British football pod / Ace Ventura pod.
So, okay, we're going to leave that conversation because there's a lot to dissect. I think we could have one whole podcast just on some of the points that he brought up. But ultimately, I do think that our coaching education needs to improve. I know a lot of coaches here locally where I am that have full-time jobs that are also coaching to make a little side scratch just because they love to do it, but don't have time to also go get that additional coaching from US Soccer or the coaches, the U.S. soccer coaches, or any of that type. They just don't have time to go make that happen, even though they might have the thirst to do it. So it's really interesting to see how we're going to continue to solve that problem. Because to his point, I think we do have plenty of kids that want to play, but how are they learning the game, to Chuck's point? All right, so Jesse Marsh, we're going to move it along, came out and said on the Twitters, I've taken some time out for myself over the last couple of months, and it's been a good chance to reflect on aspects of life while in Leeds. I'm very proud of our achievements, like staying up in 21-22. And when I look back on my time at Leeds, I will think of that with great pride. I'm also grateful to work with a great group of players and staff and have met some fantastic people in Yorkshire. I'm taking some time to consider the right next step. But until then, I'll be enjoying my time with family and friends. So that's Jesse Marsh breaking his silence after getting sacked. And Leeds are still in a perilous position. So we'll see how that unfolds. Well, let's get to some fun stuff to tie up this last one. And if you're not watching, then you're going to have to go find it on the internet. But the U.S. women's national team dropped a new kit ahead of the Women's World Cup that's happening in Australia this summer. And there's also a new secondary kit, away kit. It feels like Nike heard everybody's complaints with regard to, all right, the World Cup jerseys maybe weren't that good. Here's some new ones. Maybe you guys like these ones instead. And so we're gonna rate those right now. And hopefully producer Alex can provide us with one of the two. The first one was a little bit of a splatter one. Still feels like a warm-up for me in some capacity. We got Alex Morgan rocking it here. And hers obviously adorned with a Women's World Cup champion patch, which, yeah, that takes it to the next level. But it still feels like a warm-up kit for me. I don't know. Chuck, I'll come to you, as someone that I know really love those World Cup jerseys.
The blue ones, yes.
All of them, Charlie.
The clarification.
Charlie got that swoosh on today. He got that swoosh on. Just know before he talks, anybody that's listening to this in audio form, he's got the swoosh on today.
He's got the swoosh.
Yeah. He's in their commercials.
Right.
He is. That's all right.
These aren't bad. These ones aren't bad.
You like the drip of the drip here.
Yeah,
this is the kind of constructive criticism I got from my high school coach, Charlie. Come on, can you be more specific, please?
I like the drip. I do like the drip.
It's different. The drip.
I actually do like it too. I like this one also, just because it gives it a little bit of because of the lack of uniformity and sizing of things, it gives it a little bit of that custom feel of like a little customization.
I kind of want to see sometimes. I need to see the whole thing. When they had the fragmented jersey, I wasn't a big fan of that. But then when you saw it in the full kit, it looked a lot better.
I told you.
I know you did. But now I want to see the full kit here. We're only getting a top half to see for sure. But okay, this one can win me over. I like the blue collar. I think that's sharp. Let's move over to the other one, which I don't know. It looks like England's kit. It kind of looks like England's. I don't know what it looks like. It's blue with red. It's like royal blue with red.
Yeah,
I prefer navy, but I'm a navy guy. And
y'all should know, guys. Like Charlie, you like the colors?
Eunice Musa looks handsome in this photo. Let's just start there.
I'm not a huge fan of the, like, I don't know what kind of red that is. It's not like an American flag red.
It's a little bit like Holland. Looks like the Dutch.
It does look like the Dutch.
In a
Nike's
weird way.
like,
But
listen,
I mean, the
we're going to
collar
change it to the
itself,
team that beat you in the World Cup.
the collar
That's how
itself has a little
it's
bit of
weird.
nostalgia vibes in it. I don't remember what era had a little bit of those pointed lines, whether it was a boot or a,
I think it was the total
yeah,
90.
total 90, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a sucker for anything that kind of pulls me back into that world. But I will say, unfortunately, the way this kit is made and the materials of it is that no matter how you photo it, it looks like there's stains on it, right? And that's just, again, how patterns work. Whenever you take patterns, it's like when Jimmy wears his super striped shirts on the green screen and you go, Jimmy, we can't see you, man. Like, you're blending in.
There's actually those patterns are for sweat, the sweat contours on your body. I know that.
Chuck's got a degree in jersey making. I love that.
And
Yeah.
Crisis management of press releases. That's what
or
Charlie's got a
reading,
degree
yeah,
in.
reading press releases. Very good reading press releases.
I think I believe they call that a media spin in Charlie's industry. You know? No, it is. I mean, hopefully it is. I just, no one sends me jerseys anymore, so I couldn't tell you what the sweat does when I go through them. You know.
Yeah, we didn't have that back in our day.
I know.
This is where
Especially
the body
Jimmy's.
sweats the most.
Jimmy was wearing jean jackets. You know what I mean? Back in his era. So like,
I was watching 90210 and wearing jean jackets, baby.
Yeah.
It was all happening. All right, that's the end of the show. We don't have any final thoughts. I'm calling the show. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, Hollywood Heath Pearce, I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conrad saying thank you for listening and watching as always. And we'll see you at Thursday at the same time. Have a good week. Later.